For the Luminex assay and LabKey server, we have had the notion of exclusions for several releases. The exclusions provide a way for a user to flag data in their Luminex runs that they deem as unreliable. This would allow for flagged results to be excluded or filtered out from downstream analyses or data queries using a filter on one of the exclusion columns that are a result of setting some of these exclusions for the data. Prior to the 17.1 release of LabKey server, we supported 3 types of exclusions for the Luminex assay: Repgroup exclusions or well group exclusions, titration exclusions, and analyte exclusions. Each of these exclusion types provided a different level of granularity for what set of rows in a given run would be flagged as unreliable with a given interaction. And with this 17.1 release of LabKey server, we're adding a 4th exclusion type for making it easier to exclude single point unknowns in bulk for a single action. So to demonstrate this new feature, I have created a Luminex assay design here on my local server, and I've uploaded some sample data runs. And what I'm going to do is select one of these data runs and talk about where the exclusion features exist for the Luminex assay. So the first type of exclusion, and kind of the most granular, is the Repgroup exclusions. Those are done using the per row icon here. Clicking on one of those brings up the dialog for how I would exclude either all analytes or individual analytes for this particular set of wells or replicate group. The other exclusion types that we previously supported for titration exclusions and analyte exclusions have been consolidated into a single exclusions menu button here, and that's where you'll also see the new feature, the new exclude single point unknowns menu item. So the exclude analytes and exclude titrations options have not changed. Their user interface and dialog remains the same for how you select which titrations or analytes to exclude. And the new exclusion type follows the very similar user interface to exclude single point unknowns, where the dialog first lists out for this particular run the set of individual samples and dilutions. So the single point unknown exclusions work at the sample dilution level. So you'll see one row in this middle table here where I can select an individual record, and from that select which of the analytes I want to exclude for that sample dilution combination. So for example, I will make a single analyte exclusion for sample 2 dilution 10, and then for dilution 40, I will just simply exclude all of the 5 analytes that I have for this particular run. When I go to save this new exclusion type, as with the other exclusion types, there's a confirmation dialog that first shows kind of what the full set of updates or changes will be made with this interaction, showing me that I have excluded 1 analyte for dilution 10 and 5 for the other dilution here in this example. And once the exclusion has been made, all the other interactions around Luminex data exclusions remains the same. So if I go back to my results grid, the excluded rows, as they would be with the other exclusion types, are displayed with an alternate background color. Here, the pink and red, you'll see. And there's also the flagged as excluded and exclusion comment columns that indicate what is actually, or why a given row is excluded, at what level of granularity it was excluded at. In this case, the single point unknown exclusions were used. Also, to undo or update an exclusion, a user can go back into the exclude single point unknowns dialog and update those entries or add comments about them, similar to the other exclusion types. And finally, the view excluded data report has been updated to also include a new section for this 4th exclusion type with very similar information as the other data regions on this page, just to indicate at a kind of a higher level or an easier way to view the full set of exclusions for, in this case, a given run of data for the Luminex assay, indicating what the sample description was, the dilution value, and the analytes that were excluded. For more information about exclusions in general for the Luminex assay or this new feature for the 17.1 release, you can go to the documentation page on labkey.org where the 4 different types that I talked about are listed out for the exclusion types with more details about the new feature to exclude single point unknowns. Thank you.